All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session. Today, we're going to be talking about building custom apps in Microsoft 365. It's a collaboration and productivity platform, but we're also going to be talking a little bit about building again business applications, leveraging that collaboration and productivity platform that we're all so familiar with and operating inside of every day. My name is Joe Steiner. I am a solutions architect here at Concurrency, and appreciate you joining us today. As we look at kind of the landscape here, we look at it as you have modern cloud operations and governance as a kind of core fundamental piece of everybody's IT environment, kind of that core infrastructure technology side. We have the technologies that apply to people, to the workforce, and also helping people adopt technology and our frontier workforce enablement area. And then we look at things and kind of, okay, how do we transform business processes? And these are the things we typically are doing in our AI business and process development area. Today, we're actually going to be kind of bridging a couple of these areas where we're going to be talking about leveraging the workforce platform that would be typically a collaboration productivity platform, Microsoft 365 services we're all so familiar with. But how do we then extend that further and get more value out of that by applying that to more specific business process needs by building business apps very simply on top of there. The technology we're going to be talking to about a lot today is the Power Platform Suite. Some of which, if you have M365 licenses, you're entitled to. And so these can be very simple, low cost, easy to deploy applications. We're going to talk through a couple of these conceptually, and we'll be kind of talking about a couple specific examples of things we've done through the course of the day today. When we think of collaboration productivity, we're really thinking about those tools that are allowing people to create, collaborate, and communicate. When we take those kind of platform things and then look at, okay, how do we apply that to then automate things, right? So I may have some communications that maybe I can automate, taking time out of saving time for individuals to do more important work and making sure it happens at certain times. How do I modernize different things so that maybe we're working within a very old spreadsheet and maybe it's kind of hard to navigate. Maybe I can make that simpler for everybody, and so that we're getting the right information in the right way, while still having maybe more of the complexity inside of there. And then finally, how do we scale this by building more intelligent apps, where we start to maybe leverage some AI into the mix here too? And so we'll be talking about all those things as we go. And the value of having these customized M365 apps is, one, it's built on an established platform. If you have M365, you already have an identity platform there. You have core security guardrails to this. You have the ability to enforce some data governance right out of the box there. And you have some other core services upon which you can build. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel, so to speak. Beyond that, because you have those things and because Power Platform's a low-code, easy way to develop these things, it reduces the cost of developing these kind of applications far beyond what would take to build it from scratch. Also then speeds up the time, which plays into the reduced cost, but there I can get value out of that quickly and start doing some rapid iterations on there as well. The other thing, these tend to be easier to maintain because they're not built on custom-built frameworks underneath there and maybe some more fragile infrastructure. It becomes a lot easier to maintain and operate over time and to update. And they tend to lend themselves to a very familiar user interface, so that a lot of those components can be reused over and over again. Again, just fast, inexpensive, quick, agile, just allows for rapid development on, again, a proven pre-built platform. We've seen a lot of interest in this space lately with different clients that have moved to the cloud. They've kind of adopted SharePoint. They have things in Teams, and they're like, okay, well, it'd be kind of interesting if we could take these next steps in very specific business use cases, and they get pretty easy to see when you look for those. A lot of organizations have gone through, kind of that digital transformation, if you will, a little bit ago, but there's a lot that wasn't touched. And so there are, hundreds to thousands of different scenarios out there that didn't quite meet those metrics for putting the extra time and investment in a full-blown transformation effort. And so those are great candidates for leveraging, Power Platform, and then underneath that, leveraging Microsoft 365 there to have that kind of built-in data structures and data platforms and core services that upon which to build things very quickly, and things that we can certainly leverage firms like ours, but also ultimately learn how to build yourselves and be able to iterate on there quickly. From there, we talk about, within the Power Platform, there's a lot of different capabilities in there. We're kind of linking in between, again, the back-end IT side of things, different technologies and business applications, as well as then, okay, what does the business area really need, whether that's marketing or sales, finance, operations. And again, how do I build something quickly that kind of takes all these into account pretty rapidly. These can be on a wide variety of there's a wide spectrum to the type of development that's possible using these platforms, whether that's with Microsoft 365 and Power Platform. You can do things that are like more complex pro code, closer to pro code kind of professional development efforts, but you don't have to use the actual pro code there. You can actually leverage low code and be able to, again, speed that up, iterate faster, get things done in a very complex fashion, down to very simple things that anybody could do, frankly, that when we talk about citizen development, that's a possibility here too. And so you have a wide spectrum of different application needs that can be met, as long as they're adding value, then and it's the value's worth the effort. You can decide how far you want to take that. All of which, again, you've got some core governance and administrative management layers to handle. When we talk about Microsoft Power Platform, consists of a few different pieces. Power BI is certainly part of that. So I have that business visualization, data visualization tool that allows me to very quickly spin up advanced dashboards and reports and be able to visualize data and analyze that in different ways. What we're going to talk about most today are really the Power Apps component, where I'm actually developing applications. Those could be applications that run in the browser, that run inside of Teams, we're going to talk about, and or reside on a mobile. And the same application can reside in all three places. People can use that where it's best for them if you develop those the right way. Behind the scenes there, Power Automate provides for that automated workflow capability. And the ability to run things off of either scheduled triggers, event triggers. It could be things that, somebody pressed a button, then, okay, I want you to go run this workflow behind the scenes and come back with this information. So those two pieces are going to be very, very important here. Data connectors are very important as well, where I'm connecting out into, again, maybe a SharePoint list, maybe an Excel file sitting in Excel, or in OneDrive, maybe into an external data source even, that can still be generated through this simple framework for the application. Conversely, I also have Dataverse, which gives me a structured database that sits behind the Power Apps and that Power Automate can interface with, that I can have structured data at the ready for anything that I'd like to develop there. I maybe use some of the data connectors to systematically and on a scheduled basis pull data in from outside things so that it's at the ready there, or it may just be data that's loaded in from interfacing with the Power App itself and that interface. So a lot of different ways to source data inside of the applications, and then using Power Apps, I can share that in multiple different interfaces across there too. When we talk about the connectors, there are over 500 pre-built connectors for just about any data source you can imagine. Some of these are generic data sources too, so kind of open-ended SQL queries, a number of different basic HTML API calls that can come from there. There are a set of, if you're thinking about licensing at all, there are a set of standard connectors that you get entitled to with the Microsoft 365 platform. Generally, those that are the Microsoft 365 core services. So if I'm just doing, kind of core things with SharePoint, with Exchange, with Office applications that are tied in with OneDrive. All those are included in the Microsoft 365 licensing you likely already have. The other ones from there, again, kind of the SQL queries, getting into Salesforce data, getting out to pulling data from, say, Box or other third-party cloud apps, Google. Those are ones that I would need to have a premium connector for and can get a license for to be able to handle that. And these I can use multiple different data sources within any application. I just need to have a premium connector available so that I can use that. And I don't have to buy one for each application either. Just enabling the premium connector for the application would allow me to tie in with any of those premium sources then inside of there. So again, this can be very cost effective if you use it the right way. And as we noted earlier, Power Apps is a low-code approach to building these. Again, whether those are standalone web or mobile apps, you can customize existing apps and embed them in different Microsoft 365 services like Teams, which we're going to spend a little time talking about, or SharePoint for that matter. The other thing to know is that the Power Platform framework is actually what sits behind Dynamics 365. So if I want to build new capabilities into a Dynamics 365 platform, I can use these same concepts and do the same thing. And I'm operating against, Dataverse is really what sits behind modern Dynamics 365 cloud instances. So same concepts, still bringing the same connectors, and be able to, again, develop quickly on top of those pre-existing platforms. The other thing that this ultimately lends itself to is, okay, I built this interface because I still need a user interface that's kind of prescriptive and provides information a certain way. But I can leverage that same Dataverse data and those things in the connectors and start doing some agents on top of there too pretty readily. So this actually allows you to build that app for now that I need to offer today, but also leverage that same platform for the future. And we're not going to talk as much about extending that into AI today, but we will a little later on. The back end, again, with Dataverse, if you need a structured database here, that's a great way to go. There are two flavors of that. There's the full-blown Dataverse, where you just pay for the amount of data that you're storing inside of there. Or there is a Dataverse for Teams, which has some limitations to it, but for a lot of applications, that's enough. And then you can use that, and that is included, again, with the Microsoft 365 licensing. So again, I can leverage this at no additional charge for the licensing for it right out of the box and be able to build apps that are accessible from within Teams, have structured data behind it, as long as it's not too extensive, and be able to build things very quickly off of that without purchasing any additional licensing. In Dataverse, I can tie that in with Azure, be able to pull things from different data sources inside of there, embedded into kind of a core operational database behind the application. But also, I can run Azure Functions against that, be able to process that data in different ways, do different things with that, and really provide a lot of power to the application by extending that out into other functions there. Really beyond that, and kind of to the point I was just making, I can extend this out beyond the M365 platform into all kinds of different tooling, whether that's Azure, whether there's other robotic process automation tools I have, get out into the Internet of Things world and be able to tie that in there by just quick connectors and extensions off of the core Power App that I've designed. These can be extended pretty widely at the end of the day, and again allows for that kind of quick, easy development path that again against proven platforms using proven connectors that operate in certain ways. So it helps provides those automatic guardrails to what's being developed. They're all those connectors have been tested and proven to operate and do certain things. When we bring this back to kind of the topic for today with Power Apps and M365, some quick examples is I could publish Power App inside of SharePoint as a web part there, create a custom form on top of a SharePoint list that maybe has some different additional processing that's going to be part of that. We're going to kind of walk through what the steps involved there. You find it's very simple to do. It's actually built right into SharePoint to be able to do that in modern SharePoint. Again, we can extend Dynamics 365, which again, that runs on Dataverse. I can build things inside of Teams and host apps in Teams in a wide variety of different fashions there. And we'll talk through that a little bit in a little bit. Being able to use Microsoft 365 data through the, again, built-in standard connectors that are there. So whether that's SharePoint, Exchange, Teams data, data from in Excel files and Word files. There's connectors for all of those inside of there. As long as it's stored in Microsoft 365 somewhere, we can get to it and either extract data from it or even write to it, as we'll talk about in a little bit. Again, I can combine that Microsoft 365 data with data that's systematically stored in Dataverse. So if I've got certain dropdowns that I know I want to have certain data in there all the time, and or I'm pulling data from an outside system and I want to show a dropdown of that's systematically updated, that's a great way to place to store that data in Dataverse, so it's readily available, it's performant, and ready to go. Then I can expose that to the application wherever I'm putting it. It could be, again, Teams, SharePoint, Outlook. I can build things right into Outlook, and then again, Dynamics 365. Talked a little bit about the kind of core services there. Biggest ones are, again, SharePoint Online or Microsoft Lists, which gets embedded inside of SharePoint in different ways. SharePoint Online, we can use file libraries. We can operate against lists. I can embed the applications inside of there so that I'm already on a SharePoint site. My Power App's sitting right there where people are, and that's an important concept with these. I can operate off of OneDrive. I can write data into files in OneDrive. I can extract data from files in OneDrive. In Teams, we're going to talk. There's a host of different ways to interface inside of Teams. I think there's about 5 or 6 there. We'll discuss in a moment. The Office applications, again, Excel, Word, PowerPoint, they're core things I can build into, modifying Excel files, extracting data, writing data to it, updating those files, as well as then Exchange Online. As I kind of think about the application, the first thing I want to do is be like, where are people gonna who's gonna be using this? What do I want it to do, and where would this best be served to them, so that, hey, they want to do this task, perform this action. Where's the best place to have that? Are they already in SharePoint and I'm just augmenting that? Great, put it inside of SharePoint. Is it something that they need to be able to have accessible mobile? Okay, we'll build a Power App that's mobile with responsive design that could be used on a mobile device and or put into Teams. If they have Teams on their phone already, then that would be accessible within that Teams interface. It could be something that, hey, this is really, related to the actions I'm taking inside of mail. Could be something related to calendaring, contact processing, sending emails. You can build that right into Outlook and Exchange Online there. So you want to think about where people are going to be using this and try not to give them another place to go to use it. Put it where they're at. Meet them where they are. The next thing we typically will be thinking about there is, okay, what's the data that's involved with this application? What's the kind of of activities that I'm going to be doing there. We've done a lot recently with Excel, and we've had a few customers that have a massive. One of them is a massive Excel sheet that they're using for. Without revealing the customer name or further details, that they're using for capital requests and being able to they have their people input data into this many sheet Excel that's got a lot of calculations in it, and they have to use that because that has to go on to another area of the company that refuses to change anything there. So what we're doing there is building a simple input field that cleans it up for the end user that's filling these requests, where they only need to go to like 3 of the sheets and fill in about 20 pieces of information. They don't need to know what all's behind the scenes there. And we can use one of the Excel connectors there to be able to do that, say, hey, fill in these pieces of information in an orderly, logical fashion, and then we take care of filling in all the places in Excel that happens in the back end. All the calculations are run, that Excel file is ready to go. Now we can use Power Automate to control the workflow in terms of any approvals that happen from there. Just one example of things that are happening there. Excel is a very powerful tool, particularly in the finance space. But in many others, in operations, we've got examples where they're using it there. There's been a host of different use cases with that. So Excel is a common one, frequently stored in a OneDrive or SharePoint, and being able to manage instances of that and/or helping with the input there. Word files, another one similar. We can update Word files off of there. OneDrive is a great store of information, whether I need to put a file somewhere at the end of an application as the output there, maybe create a PDF or a Word document or Excel file because of the interaction with the application, or extracting that information and then presenting that form in a different way to make it easier to populate, like the example I was just describing. SharePoint file libraries. Be insert SharePoint lists as well, being able to pull data from there, extract data, and then finally, if I need a more structured database style table of information, I can use Dataverse, and then Dataverse for Teams or Dataverse full, kind of my options. The big differentiator between those is going to be, do I want to expose this application through Teams primarily, and/or do I have a vast amount of data, or there's a fair amount you can store inside Dataverse for Teams, but if it's more extensive, you're going to drive over the limits there. That's just a simple thing to evaluate there. Otherwise, I can tie that in with other Power Platform connectors. Some of that I may be pulling that data into Dataverse or dealing with that in live queries through the course of interactions with the apps. So I want to be thinking about where the data is and what's all going to be needed for that. And then from there, I can work on the user interface, given I know where that needs to be, know where the data is. Off of the data, frequently I can generate kind of an initial automatic Power App there, and if that suits your needs, great, you're done. Otherwise, that might be a little fine tuning, working with the fields, working with the different input controls inside of there that you'll operate. If I'm starting from an Excel, like the examples we talked about before, there's 3 different ways to do that. One, I can create a Power App from an imported Excel file where I take an Excel file, I convert it into a Dataverse table, and it can automatically generate an app for me, which I can then tune and adjust to my needs. Allows for very quick, rapid generation of an application off of an Excel file. Frequently, it's something that I have a table that's already got some structure to it already. You're great for providing a input data capture application of some kind that I'm just filling in information in a table, allows me to now make that more easily accessible from a mobile standpoint. Maybe I have field workers that are collecting information that all needs to get going in this table. That kind of a great example. We have some of those that we've done. The other option is I can create a Power App with a connection to Excel. So I'm not importing the Excel file, but I'm actually working with a live file, where this would be that case I was citing before, where I'm updating this file over time and interacting with it as the users slowly or quickly, hopefully, inputting information. But they're doing that perhaps in stages, right? I'm working on this section, and then maybe I'll come back to it later and then do this section, and it can update that file over time. And then once it's done, we can use Power Automate to run an approval workflow on there to say, hey, whoever's next in the chain, you need to look at this and work it through that way. But it allows for that iterative process of updating an Excel file. Maybe it's not just a table, but there are certain input fields there that I just want to expose so that nobody touches the rest of the Excel file. This is a way to abstract that as well. So another option is I can take an existing Canvas app and I can connect that Canvas app to an Excel table, which will then bring those fields in and it'll understand that, okay, I need to create the input fields for this table, and it'll give you some options as to how you want to format that. There's a couple of different design patterns that can be applied. And again, instantly what it's going to do is say, okay, I know I've got to collect data for these fields. Do you want it this way? Do you want it, kind of like this? There's a couple of, like I said, different design patterns that then can be automatically generated, and you have yourself an app potentially within minutes in some of those cases. So again, very rapid opportunities for development here. That's the Excel world there. Let's say that I've got data in a SharePoint list. I may have some kind of application already that perhaps I'm using lists for, things like that. This is a really simple process. Is if I already have a list there, I can actually create a Power App from within SharePoint and say, hey, I want to create an app for this list. They'll just create a form for entering data into that list. That again gives me that mobile option potentially. It could be just within SharePoint, but gives me a friendlier interface rather than having to enter things across the line there. It gives me more of a form that maybe makes a little more sense. I might work at tying in some external data sources to help pre-populate some fields there. There's a couple of different things I can do there, but it gives me a very quick initial prototype or version of the application that I then can go and develop from there. Once I'm ready, then I publish and share it out. And again, there are governance controls over the sharing of the apps, and that there too again, and it all operates off of the core Entra identity foundation, so that only certain people are able to access this. If I can't access those SharePoint lists, I'm not going to be able to access this app either, and or work with it. So it respects the permissions of SharePoint. It also, if I'm working within files, will respect any purview data protections that I have in there too. Again, all based on my identity, which is driven from Entra and the same login that I'm using every day for my Microsoft 365 environment. So that was Excel and SharePoint. Let's talk about Teams. Teams allows us to extend these business applications in a host of different ways. I can build the Power Apps into Teams in a few different fashions, which we'll discuss in just a moment, but it really provides this powerful platform upon which I can start building applications. We all know Teams as a place for chats, for meetings, for calls, for storing files and sharing and collaborating amongst others within our workforce and even externally. But now I can extend that further by adding in apps and workflows right to where they're working all day, every day. It can be leveraging things like the chats and the meetings and files and whatnot there. And these applications might be driven off of some of those capabilities and in some of those interfaces. But I also can just have a page there that gives me this application, so I can switch from, okay, I'm in a chat, great, I switch over to the app. I operate in the app, input the information, collect information, whatever I'm doing within that app, and then I can go back and operate with the rest of my workday. I don't have to go somewhere else again to work with this application. Within there, I also am able to extend this out, and here's where we can see all the different ways that a Power App can be manifested within the Teams platform. One, I can put it into tabs. So I can have a tab inside of there on my side and say, okay, here's this application. You click on there, it'll give me kind of the full screen view of that Power App. Or if it's based on SharePoint, it might be a Power App that's inside of SharePoint that can be exposed in that fashion. I also can create bots inside of here. So again, we kind of drift into maybe leveraging some AI in there. I may have a knowledge base. I can use Power Apps to build these bots in there that could be prescriptive. It may not be using AI. It may be, again, very prescriptive, or I could have a more dynamic version by leveraging some AI capabilities inside of there. Again, that could just be a bot that exists in the chat sessions. So as I'm chatting with others, I'm able to chat with this bot too. It can participate inside of other Teams conversations too. You can actually embed bots within an existing Teams collaboration channel or chat message that then, as everyone else is interacting with it, it can be triggered at certain times when you call out to it and or it's looking for certain actions. I can put extensions on messages. I can have connectors that's automatically posting content into different channels and activity feeds. I can have connector cards inside of here, so I can have cards that allowed for me to view just a bit of information inside of something else that I'm doing within Teams. And all these can be published through an app store, which allows me to roll these out very quickly to different users and across the enterprise. Again, Teams platform, I can tie in with all the productivity apps, both the Microsoft ones and outside of that. Again, using those connectors that we talked about earlier. I can leverage the Power Platform, whether that's Power Apps, whether that's Power Automate, Power BI I can expose to there. It gives me that platform to be able to expose all that again in that place. People are working naturally already. So the most important part of all this, aside from the benefits, the rapid development and all that, is I already have the trusted and security underneath there. Again, Microsoft, the Dataverse allows for enterprise-grade database structuring and data management inside of there. All operates off of security permissions driven through Entra, the security roles and groups that I've already defined. And I can control access to the applications by permissions inside of Teams, both inside the organization as well as outside. I can create applications that maybe I'm exposing to the outside world in some fashion by permitting them to be available from there and being able to be part of a security group that I've identified that, hey, these are also allowed to users are also allowed to work with this. And I can offer pre-built solutions for a lot of these. There are some kind of core bits to this, to formatting all this that's available. So again, making development very easy, very more configurable than core customization. It speeds up that process. There are customizable templates where I can take these and then extend them further using some of the Power Platform. And again, by having things in the app marketplace, I can install these apps with a single click, which makes deployment to wider organizations, once I'm ready for that, very, very simple. Again, behind the scenes of all this, if I'm leveraging Dataverse, I have a lot of core capabilities inside of there I'd expect out of a database platform. Any of my standard kind of data operations, bulk operations, transactions, being able to import data, transform that, at a base level, working with the metadata from there, being able to tie in with other sources via API calls, being able to automate updates there, all possible with Dataverse. Again, here's kind of a list of some of the capabilities of Dataverse for Teams. This, we'll kind of talk about some of the limitations. Biggest one is just the size. I think you're limited to about 2 gigabytes per Dataverse for Teams instance, if I'm not mistaken. So not going to have a few of those, but that's kind of the upper bound in terms of the data allowance for that. If I want to do things beyond that and leverage Dataverse more broadly, this starts to extend out, and I start to remove some of those limitations with Dataverse for Teams. So very powerful platform built into the same cloud fabric that Microsoft 365 is and PowerPoint platform latches onto. So it's all built in together, highly integrated. I don't have to build that integration. I just have to connect to it. The other thing I can do with Power Apps is I can tie in with Azure API management. So if I'm using API management inside of Azure to broker connections into other applications and services I built inside of Azure, Power Apps can interface with that very readily and be able to pull data, extract data, publish out to other applications, and or receive data from there too, and interface with it. Then I can leverage Azure Functions and a host of other capabilities inside of Azure to be able to operate further and extend my application further from there. As we talked, you have enterprise-grade governance with this. You have the identity management platform with Entra. You have information protection through permissions controls inside of SharePoint and Teams, as well as then any data protection or DLP that I might be doing with Purview, for example, all automatically innately integrated inside of there. I have secure data control on mobile devices with Intune. Intune understands Power Apps and how to manage those. Full compliance like you'd expect from the rest of the Microsoft 365 platform. So that's all built in from the get-go. Again, speeding up development because I don't have to deal with that in the same way. It's there already. Obviously, I still want to be mindful of how I'm setting permissions, who I'm exposing things to, all that. But the core foundations of that are all in place for you. I don't have to rebuild that. Again, DLP is respected throughout the platform. So if I'm not, if I have a policy that says, hey, I can only use trusted business data sources, and this individual can only access this here, well then that'll be allowed, but it'll exclude other things, and it won't change the permissions to allow things to operate against other policies I may have set for DLP or for different security things. So it respects the existing permissions and controls that exist inside of the environment. I have admin reporting and analytics across here, so I can see where these things are being used, how they're being used, performance measurements for those. Being able to log activity through here, so I can say, okay, who's accessing what, and all that feeds into the broader Microsoft 365 data feeds, so that can be consumed by your SIEM and any other things like Sentinel that maybe you have operating against that, and you can automate different actions alerts by even leveraging Power Platform inside of there to trigger notifications and things like that. So again, the other thing I can do here, we've talked about really building those kind of static applications with a lot of power to them off of kind of core data sources. I can build these intelligent applications, a lot of robust logic inside of there. Again, leveraging Power Automate along with the Power App to control how things operate and come together. A lot of what we've talked about, ultimately, we'd be operating within a drag and drop designer. So I've maybe started something with an Excel file. I then go to the drag and drop designer to tune that, modify it as I see fit. But if I'm starting from scratch, the other thing I can do now, and this is there's an early access to this, is I actually can start building applications using natural language using an AI interface. So I can describe the business challenge that I'm trying to solve. You're going to need to be specific. Again, anytime you're working with AI right now, you need to treat it, as we frequently will say around here, like an intern. All due respect to interns, but sometimes need to have things explained a little more depth. But if I can do that in a natural language way, it will provide recommendations and even start to generate that if I feel like that's on track. I'll say, oh, here's the data sources I feel like you're going to need. Here's how I would construct this. And then you can have it do it. So very powerful. It makes this even easier as you go from there. Really just putting in a prompt and telling it, hey, here's the kind of data and workflows that I want to design here. And it'll then transform that into what it feels would be a viable application off of that. And here you can see it starting to generate the underlying code for that, which then will turn itself into a Power App at the end that's easily accessible and it looks just like I'd see any other other Power App there. So there's some, customizations I'd be doing there, but it can even speed up the process further by operating this way. So again, by leveraging AI inside of here, I've taken this from what was kind of a more robotic approach to this. Say, hey, we know what you're trying to get out of this. Let me do that for you, and provide that to really fully customized, kind of intelligent design on this by leveraging AI to be able to build these same kind of applications again against things like my Microsoft 365 platform and or others, being able to extend that out pretty widely across my broader data estate, both whether within Microsoft 365 and forward. So Power Apps plays a strong role inside of here. It also connects in. We're doing a lot of work with things where we're working with building agents and building AI constructs and things like Copilot Studio. But the Power Apps and Power Automate plays a strong role inside of there to be able to perform certain things that just have to happen the same way every time. And so I can construct things that combine AI agents with Power Apps and build a more powerful agentic AI solution off of there. Again, I take my apps, I combine that with AI, and now I have a very powerful, intelligent application that's operating against the data that I've exposed it to. And allowing for that conversational format from there too. So just starting with the kind of forms-based app, which might be the simplest thing to do today and exactly what you need, doesn't preclude you from taking that same platform forward and turning that into an agent someday and or sooner than later. So a very powerful platform. Hopefully this was helpful for you. If anybody is interested in some of the things we talked about today, we'd love to talk to you. Please reach out and we'd welcome the conversation and kind of talk to you in more depth about some of the things that are possible in this space. Again, being able to build things rapidly for our clients. So thank you very much, and we'll take any questions if there are any. Otherwise, we appreciate your time today, and thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, I'm not seeing any questions, but I'll go ahead and close out the event. Thank you, Joe, and thanks everybody for attending.
Thank you all. Bye.